Hello. I'm going to give you the evidence that will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that you will live on happy and healthy after your body dies. I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, President of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, author, co-author, or editor of 10 books containing the evidence we are spiritual beings who live on after we've left our bodies behind. I'm going to provide you with evidence from 6 areas of afterlife study that prove beyond a reasonable doubt you will never die. The first area is use of technology to provide recorded evidence of the life after this life. People are now recording the voices of loved ones in the afterlife through electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. It's also called instrumental transcommunication, or ITC. In 2001, Sonia Rinaldi, a researcher in Brazil, began recording the voices of children whose bodies had died to give to their parents. The parents were overjoyed. Here's an example. Sonia asks whether the child in spirit would like to leave a message for her mother.
Would you like to leave a message to your mother?
Mommy, I can talk.
Here are examples of parents talking to their children and the children answering on the recordings. A father calls in and Sonia records the father talking to his child in spirit. When she plays back the recording, the child's response is on the recording.
I'm sure you're doing great. We love you and miss you.
Daddy, no, love you.
What follows is a series of communication of children living in the next life, speaking to their parents.
Jasmine, what do you like to say to your dad? Say something beautiful to your mother.
Me too.
What else you'd like to say?
Don't cry.
You can listen to more children speaking to their parents in verified recordings at seekreality.com. People who have died often appear and speak with loved ones still on earth. We have testimonies from highly regarded psychiatrists, professors, and even a Bible translator that dead people appeared to them and spoke to them. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the Swiss-American psychiatrist who was an expert on death and dying, was listed as one of the 100 most important thinkers of the century by Time magazine in 1999. She was included in the list of the foremost women of the 20th century. She described a visit from a patient of hers named Mrs. Schwartz, who had been dead for 2 years. This is a voiceover speaking the words Dr. Kubler-Ross wrote.
I was at a crossroad. I felt I needed to give up my work with dying patients. That day, I was determined to give notice and leave the hospital and the University of Chicago. It wasn't an easy decision, because I really love my patients. I walked out of my last seminar on death and dying towards the elevator. At that moment, a woman walked towards me. She had an incredible smile on her face, like she knew every thought I had. She said, "Dr. Ross, I'm only going to take 2 minutes of your time. If you don't mind, I'll walk you down to your office." It was the longest walk I have ever taken in my life. One part of me knew this was Mrs. Schwartz, a patient of mine who had died and been buried almost a year ago. But I'm a scientist, and I don't believe in ghosts and spooks. I did the most incredible reality testing I've ever done. I tried to touch her, because she looked kind of transparent in a waxy way. Not that you could see furniture behind her, but not quite real either. I know I touched her, and she had feeling to her. We came to my office and she opened the door. We went inside, and she said, "I had to come back for 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted to thank you and Reverend Smith once more for what you have done for me. But the real reason why I had to come back is to tell you not to give up your work on death and dying. Not yet." I realized consciously that maybe indeed this was Mrs. Schwartz. But I thought nobody would ever believe me if I told this to anybody. They really would think I had flipped. So my scientist in me very shrewdly looked at her and said, "You know Reverend Smith would be thrilled if he would have a note from you. Would you terribly mind? You understand that the scientist in me needed proof. I needed a sheet of paper with anything written in her handwriting, and hopefully her signature. This woman knew my thoughts and knew I had no intention to ever give her note to Reverend Smith. However, she took a piece of paper and wrote a message and signed it with her name. Then, with the biggest smile of love and compassion and understanding, she said to me, 'Are you satisfied now?' Once more, she said, 'You cannot give up your work on death and dying. Not yet. The time is not right. We will help you. You will know when the time is right. Do you promise?' The last thing I said to her was, 'I promise.' And with that, she walked out. No sooner was the door closed, I had to go and see if she was real. I opened the door, and there was not a soul in that long hallway.
Mrs. Schwartz was alive, healthy, and articulate. She appeared in a body Dr. Kubler-Ross recognized immediately. Mrs. Schwartz did not die when her body died. At seekreality.com, you can read about and listen to verified descriptions of more such visits given by psychiatrist and physician Dr. Raymond Moody, of his extended conversation with his dead grandmother, and Bible translator J.B. Phillips' conversation with the deceased author of the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis. People whose bodies are dead come through in seances talking to loved ones sitting in the room. In a seance by the medium David Thompson, a man who had died several months before came into the room and spoke to his love Sarah, sitting in the room. Nick speaks first.
I love you from my heart.
Okay.
I told you that just before I left you.
I know.
I'll always be with you. Always be with you.
Okay, my darling.
Promise me something.
Yes.
I want you to be happy.
I will for you. I will for you. I'll make the best of what I've got here.
Done more than man could ever want. More than any man could ever want.
Okay, my baby, because you know you were worth it. You don't ever doubt how much I loved you and how much I will continue to love you. Don't ever doubt.
Doubt anything lined up for you.
Okay, my baby. Oh, I love you. I love you.
Sarah knew it was her love Nick who had died months before. Nick's body had died, but he did not die. We all live on after the body dies. There is more to this seance. You can listen to all of it and to other recordings of dead people who came through in seances at seekreality.com. Another area of evidence of the reality of the afterlife is in verified recordings of dead people speaking to loved ones on Earth in extended dialogues. Dr. Dinshawn Nanji was a professor in the Department of Biochemistry at the University of Birmingham in the UK. After his wife, Annie, died, he went to a medium named Leslie Flint, and as he sat with Flint, he heard his wife, Annie, telling him she was with him when he went to her grave to put flowers on it. We have the recording. Only Dr. Nanji and Flint were in the room.
Why do you still go to the cemetery?
Well, darling, how can I pass your birthday without my...
I appreciate it, but I'm
Without
not
my
there.
family.
I'm not there.
No, I know that.
And I see you go there, and it makes you depressed.
Yeah, No, I'm not depressed, darling.
No?
No, I'm not depressed.
And the flowers.
But the fact that I have cleaned it up and put the bushes round for
I
the
know,
winter.
I see you, I watch
Yes,
you
I was
do
there.
it, and I think...
I was there a week ago.
The only time I'm ever in the cemetery is when you go there.
Yes.
Annie's body was dead, but she was alive. Just as you will always live, you will never die. More recordings of Annie Nanji and Dr. Nanji speaking are at seekreality.com. There you can also listen to the recordings of a wife talking to her dead husband and a mother talking to her son who had been killed in World War II. Psychotherapists are helping people have afterlife communications with their loved ones for whom they are grieving while they sit in the psychotherapist's offices. This is an example. A woman named Carol came to a state-licensed psychotherapist named Rochelle Wright because of her grief over her daughter's passing in a car accident. Rochelle used a special procedure called repair and reattachment therapy, and Carol had a wonderful connection with her daughter. This is a video of Carol describing what happened as she sat in Rochelle's office.
Immediately as my session began, I had headphones on and music playing and was following Rochelle's instructions. My daughter Kate came up in my head. The best way to describe it was my eyes were closed and the visual right away was on the left side of my mind. Kate appeared coming down a sidewalk, and like I said, it was on my left side. There was a wall and it was beautiful. There was ivy growing out of it and a big old tree. Kate started walking towards me, and it was amazing to have this. I was sitting there with my eyes closed, literally looking at my daughter, Kate, walking towards me. As she walked towards me, she put her hand out, and I was able to put my hand out and feel hers on mine. I was able to feel her fingers, also to hug her and to stroke her hair. She was wearing a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops like she did when she was alive and she was here on Earth, and it was amazing. She led me down the sidewalk and we walked, and she was talking and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but it was just truly amazing that my daughter was literally, I was right there with her. Other than to say that it was real, I don't know how else to explain it. We flashed from walking on the sidewalk to the accident scene, and Kate died on a Sunday night in torrential downpour rain. We went to the accident scene. Kate was in a white dress, and she was right over the center of the street. I could see the lake that was at the accident scene. I could see the guardrail. The rain was on an angle. The visual was unbelievable. It was so clear. It was like I was right there with her. We were literally in the middle of the street, and then we would flash back to the sidewalk. As my connection with Kate was happening, Martine, my girlfriend Linda, who flew to Gig Harbor with me, son, was coming in and out of back and forth with me and Kate. Martine was sitting on his couch in his family room, and he had his leg up on the coffee table, and it's real clear for me still to this day, and he was smiling at me, and he had his arm in a very funny pose. Best way to describe it was like in a monkey pose. I didn't know what that meant. I just kept flashing back and forth. I was kind of confused, but to feel that connection to my daughter, and I knew it was real, was amazing. So I went back and forth with my daughter Kate, and it would flash to Martine, and Kate I was outside with, and Martine I was inside with. I could, you know, just look at her. It was real. We'd held hands. I hugged her. I stroked her hair. It was truly amazing. I don't know how to describe it other than I know that it was real. I know with confidence today that it was real. And the validation, which I think is one of the most important parts, is that after I left my session and walked back to the hotel, I was describing to Linda Martine's arms in the shape of the monkey pose, going ee and smiling at me. And what I found out is that Martine used to do that with his family all the time. It was something he just did with his sisters and his mom. I didn't know that he did that. So for me, that proved to me and Linda that it was real. So to this day, when I cry and grieve my daughter, I'm not cured and it's not gone away, the pain. But I always know where my daughter is, and she's free and she's happy and she's on the other side.
Anyone can have these connections while sitting with a psychotherapist. They're 98% successful. The reason is that the loved ones whose bodies have died are very much alive and anxious to communicate. You can learn about 2 other methods psychotherapists use to help people have their own afterlife communications at seekreality.com. We have developed a training program that teaches people how to go into a self-hypnotic state of mind in which they have their own afterlife communication with their loved ones. The procedure is called a self-guided afterlife connection. This is a narration of a report by a woman who had a wonderful self-guided afterlife connection with a girl whose body had been killed in an automobile accident. She has a remarkable validation that it was the daughter of a friend of hers.
Then I saw a young girl, a teenager. She had familiar features. The name Brenda came to me and I realized it's a friend of mine's daughter. She died in a rollover crash where she was pinned and asphyxiated. The kids with her were allegedly responsible for her being abandoned at the wreck. The feelings I got from her had nothing to do with that wreck or the people around her then. She hovered with me, morphing a bit so I saw her in different ages. I saw her exploring. I saw her as a student, studying. I don't know that she did that on Earth, but she is now that she's passed. I heard her say, "I love Mom. I miss Mom." I asked in my mind, how can you miss her? You are always with her. It was a misunderstanding. I saw some food item rolled. It looked like a lobster roll but with jalapenos. I was focused on it too much and it disappeared. I looked to the side and saw her as a little girl, rolling out dough, working on a red check tablecloth, working so hard. She was darling. Then I realized, oh, she misses doing this stuff with her mom. At least that's what I got from it. I saw her enjoying the weather, the fall, the leaves' colors. I saw her and felt her loving the ocean and tide. I could feel her sort of drinking it in. She showed me some other things she was liking about where she was. And her condition. Well, how do? I wrote Lauren, mother of Brenda, in the Afterlife connection, and told her the first part of it and how confused I was with the roll-ups that had jalapeno in them. I kept thinking, what on earth? So I wrote Lauren, unsure of how much to tell her. I can never remember who is a believer and who isn't. Guess what? She writes back and says it makes sense to her. Yes, they made jalapeno roll-ups. What? I've never heard of such a thing. Look, if I ever thought I was making this stuff up, well, I completely believe now. Where the hell did jalapeno roll-ups come from?
The woman's vivid experience of the young girl matched her friend's daughter, even to the unusual creation of jalapeno roll-ups. The experience validated that the young girl was alive, although her body had died, and she was anxious to communicate. She did not die, just as you will never die.